Meeting to order at 6 o'clock. All board members are present with the exception of Randy, who is excused. First up is review and approval of the November 12th public meeting minutes.
Make a motion to accept the November 12th public meeting minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. November 19th public meeting minutes.
Want a trifecta, Jeff?
What?
Want a trifecta?
Yeah. Make a motion to accept the November 19th meeting minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And I abstain, but I wasn't here. December 3rd meeting minutes.
A motion to accept the December 3rd meeting minutes.
Second again.
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay, first up, public communication and correspondence.
Next meeting.
Any good? Oh, yeah. I was just so excited because Edgar was, no, I'm just kidding. Yes, our next meeting is January 14th. Thank you, Mark.
That feels like a while.
It is. It's over a month away.
Goodness, everybody.
I thought so. Because this was a good time, right? Okay, now public communication and correspondence. Seeing none. Board member reports. Mark. We did start strategic direction planning, which I think is there an update on the agenda? Yeah, so all I can say is it was the person doing the facilitation, IBIS, which used to be ISOBAR, he was very good. So it was nice to begin that process and provide some structure, which Michael will talk about sooner later. So. Okay, we'll do the two new business and then I'll class size up. Okay, indoor track coach.
Yes, so this is a request to add a second indoor track coach and not fill the Nordic coach position for this season. We don't have anyone signed up for Nordic skiing, and we see the numbers that we have for indoor track. This is similar to the request that came forward for middle school volleyball in the spring.
What are the numbers with indoor track last year versus this year?
That I don't know. I don't have last year's numbers. Clearly last year we had fewer numbers because we ran it with one coach. Therefore this year we have higher numbers and going for a second coach.
I know Cayman said it's over 30 who have signed up this year. It's a lot. And,
This-
and the number was growing.
Yeah, we had 40
This year's
plus.
44.
Yeah.
According. And this isn't a permanent change,
Nope,
it's
it's for the
the
season.
season.
Based on the numbers.
I don't want to be wise, but I'm going to ask anyway. What if we have one Nordic skier next year and 45 students that do indoor track? we're gonna run into a problem where we're going to create another coaching position, or like,
Yeah, we'll have to reassess.
we're gonna have to think about that.
Mhm.
Other thoughts? Yes, Sean?
I'm just thinking about how the motion's gonna go. It's up for action, right?
It's up for action. If we do this, we are switching out.
'Cause I'm not comfortable dropping co-ed Nordic ski.
So I'd say the motion could read to add a second indoor track coach by not filling the
Vacant.
Nordic skiing coaching position for the 24-25 winter season.
Could
Like
ref-
that.
You could reference it, yeah, for one season only. Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Second.
Greta, did you?
That makes
get-
sense, Greg?
Yeah, so I have, a motion was made by, actually, who? Sean. Second was Mark, was that correct?
Jeff.
Okay, so I have, motion was made by Sean Embry and seconded by Jeffrey Roberts to approve the addition of a second indoor track coach by not filling the co-ed Nordic skiing coach position for this season.
For the
winter.
24-25
Or
winter
24,
season.
25.
A motion is second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention?
I'll abstain.
BH STEM trip to England. There's information in our packet. This is permission to plan.
Make a motion to approve the permission to plan for the Belmont High School STEM trip to England for spring 2026.
Second.
Discussion?
So I went to this for one of my kiddos. We had a lot of questions, or my wife and I had a lot of questions based on the last trip that we lost a significant amount of money on. They're looking for 14. There was a deadline to get a discount. At that point, I believe there was only 4 signed up at that point. We're still on the fence because, I mean, the questions that, that we have of if it's canceled and who cancels it and the reasons why it's canceled, no one can give us any hard answers on, yes, you will have a complete.
And wasn't
Yeah.
the situation that it was difficult or impossible to get the money back? Was that the issue too?
Well, so the last one, last spring, it was, the trip itself, at least from what we were told, was canceled originally due to safety concerns, due to the area that they were going to travel. It then switched to, I want to say, a Germany trip, which then switched to a Spain trip or something along those lines, because there wasn't enough numbers and they were trying to combine with other groups. And then all of a sudden, Chaperone backed out, and again, it's we lost registration fees, we lost insurance money, and it was not canceled due to any of the participants' fault. So going into into something like this, I mean, I almost feel that you need to have some numbers before you start planning planning for a trip. Some of the same people from the first trip were at we're at the presentation for this one, as well. So there's some interest, but I don't like lighting money on fire personally.
So Michael, what's the difference between, like, what gets done beforehand, before it comes to the board for permission to plan, and then when we approve it? Like, how does it actually?
So the permission to plan is just giving, basically, given the authorization to start the planning process, and they've already had a couple meetings here. They start working out the details, and those details are then outlined in the permission to travel. So it's just saying, you have our permission to at least plan the trip, and then work those details out, maybe get those questions answered that Mark is referring to, and have that as part of the permission to travel that comes to the board.
So nobody should be paying money, I'm just asking, prior to,
They already have. Some people have already signed up.
and put money down?
Oh, yeah. Because we had a deadline to register for a discount, and that deadline was last week, I believe.
So, hearing that makes me think that the permission to plan should have been done well in advance
Yeah.
of tonight. And this is now, when people start paying, I feel like it should have already been approved by the board for the second phase of it, basically.
Because what happens if the trip's canceled? Do you get money? Do those people who put money down get money?
So there's a very lengthy list of why it would be canceled, on whether or not you get a full refund, and really no one ever seems to be able to answer the question of, do you get the registration fee and or your insurance fee back if it has to cancel for any number of reasons. So they do have, so you would be entitled to a full refund if any of the 1 through 20 situations happen. But if you get into a situation like we had the last time where there wasn't enough numbers and they couldn't arrange to combine with other with other schools, and then all of a sudden we have a chaperone back out, you had either 5 or 6 people last spring that was sitting on the curb going, wait a minute, what just happened? And Randy was one of them. Randy had to sacrifice more money than Lori and I did, based on the insurance that she bought.
So, but I guess also to this point is, if we said no to this, which I'm not saying we would, but if we did, people have already put money down. Right? I mean, it's kind of an odd position to be in, right? To say, we have some questions and people have already.
Yeah, I think we're talking about a couple different things. One is the process is not working, I don't think. And then also, secondly, aside from the process, I want to make sure we're clear with parents or anybody that's putting money forward as to the risks of putting money forward and putting deposit down, and what you may not be able to get your deposit back, for what those reasons are. I'd like to have a situation where our families aren't responsible in any situation, but maybe that's not realistic. But it better be spelled out that if I'm providing my deposit, I might not get it back for X number of reasons. I hope that's very, very clear to people and explained, so that I know the risk. And the problem with that is, now you're gonna get less people to make deposits. It's a double-edged sword.
I think I can ask Mr. Finch to make sure that that's at the forefront of the conversation when a staff member wants to put a trip together. Just put it right there before you even discuss the cost associated with it. But here's the risk involved.
It could also be something that, if you're talking about adjustments to the process, maybe there's the standard kind of board report packet, but also if you have a permission to plan specific one, put the financial side first. So that way, if you want to consider that as before you go any further with the consideration of the trip, if that's A, number one, then let's have people list that first. In the past, there's been, kind of just past practice about the number of students who would be anticipated to participate and the educational goals and stuff, but if you want that spelled out differently, and I don't have any issue asking people to do that, it's just, what do you want on there? Let's create a form, let's make it specific, so that way it's consistent each time.
So, after we had a fairly lengthy discussion about I guess it was more than a year at this point, but the trip that got canceled, I mean, we were pretty clear as a board that we shouldn't be, in the position again, and here we are in the position again where we're planning and money's going down, before we're given approval.
So obviously we have multiple options, but we can, right now this is up for permission to plan, knowing what we know now that deposits have been put forth. We clearly need to correct, in my opinion, we need to correct the process so that people aren't putting money down before we have given permission to plan, because
So, I mean, when we question the numbers, before the day of the deadline, the answer that was given to us is like, well, we have over a year, we should be able to get enough people to participate.
Doesn't make me feel better.
No, it doesn't. So it's a fairly large gamble for the people that are currently involved.
So the question is, I 100% agree, but what do we want to do with this permission to plan?
I mean, part of me feels like our hands are kind of tied. We
I
have to
know.
approve the permission to plan because they've already been planning the project, they've already accepted money. I think we have to put ourselves behind it at this point, at this phase of it.
I agree. I don't like feeling that way because I don't know enough about what risk, what if people put down and this type of thing. We wouldn't have even known had you not gone through it. We wouldn't have even known that had happened. So that's the other thing.
Well, and I mean, Randy's absent tonight, but she was one of the participants there, as well. And I think that Randy has bought into the trip. I'm not positive, so I can't put complete words in her mouth. But again, it was similar presentation, similar high stakes sales tactic. You got a limited amount of time, to get a few $100 discount. We've gone in the past, so there shouldn't be any concerns, going in the future. But my eyes are open this time.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for permission to plan for this. Oh, I made a motion, right?
You did?
Good, I made a motion, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we had to make a motion.
We already have the
Oh,
motion.
who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Jeff.
Okay, so any other discussion? So I missed the whole motion and second.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
I'll abstain again.
Okay, under continuing business, I'm gonna move up BHS class size in the interest, because that's the only item that you're here for after, okay. So, okay, I mean, we are fun and all, so you're welcome to stay. But let's do BHS class size, that was included in your packet.
So the board's been provided with the average class size. This is the courses, each individual course, and even the block that is offered and the number of students in each block. You're looking at
So, First question from me is, thank you for the information. This was very interesting. Like, I was able to grab it and put, like, Debbie would appreciate this, like, spreadsheet of blocks, right? So block 1, block 2, block 3. I can get a visual and say, you know, the first semester we offered this many classes in the first block, in the second block. And I know the second block seems like it has more classes than the other block. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it's
But-
heavy on both semesters.
Getting to my question. First semester, second block, Earth Science, looks like there's 2 Earth Science classes, 14 and 9. Is that accurate?
I believe so. I mean, those numbers came right out of Alma, so I can pull it open right in Alma as well. Is it the Earth Science classes?
Yep.
Okay. Second, not a question, more a comment. I experienced this ourselves, so. It feels like, looking at the first semester, block 4, there are a lot of honors and AP courses in block 4, which limits, if you're not in honors or AP, you have a limited number of courses you can take in block 4 that first semester. Are we trying to balance out the honors and AP courses through the 4 blocks?
Yeah, this is super challenging because you're balancing multiple things. One is there are certain courses that are, I refer to it as hard scheduled into your schedule every year in your master schedule because they literally can't be anywhere else because they're taught by one teacher. A school our size, we have many classes, we have entire programs that we literally have one teacher, whether it's PE or music or graphic design or things like that. So when you have honors level courses, some of those courses only individual teachers are actually credentialed to do, whether it's a running start course or something like that, because you have to have certain degrees to do that. We try to spread it out, but you're also trying to balance that with hard scheduling. Block 1 Priv, Block 4 Priv, kids have to make decisions with that. Kids have to make decisions about the Hewitt classes. So we try to spread it out. There was one year when the schedule just kind of worked out that a lot of our high-level math courses fell during Block 2. That turned out to be a complicating factor because, for example, there were kids who were in the band who had a hard time accessing some of the high-level math classes. By the way, one of the answers to your question about there seems like a lot of classes during Block 2. Remember, some of that is also the fact that Block 2 is our rotating class too. So some of those classes, for example, the 2 Earth Science sections that you're talking about run alternatively. They're both Block 2. It's A days and B days for the course of the year. So the courses that we offer at the high school are full credit classes. We used to have some half credit, some full credit. We transitioned to just full credit offerings. So if a class is taught for semester 1 or semester 2, it meets every day for those 90 or 90-ish school days, right? If something is on the rotation, which is what we refer to it, it goes A days or B days. Block 2 is the only block of our schedule that rotates. And that goes the entire year to have the same number of class meetings, the same, old phrase, seat time. So that's how we balance that out. It also allows us to, we moved away from skinnies, I don't know if you remember those. It's a block of the day where it was basically cut in half for some of the classes. That was a challenge for our schedule. That was a challenge for certain courses. Let's say that you're a musician, right? And you go into a 40-minute block instead of an 80-minute block. The first 5 minutes of your block is setting up your instrument. The last 5 minutes is packing up, putting away. Saxophone has multiple pieces before it gets into the case. All of a sudden, that 40-minute block is more like 25, 26 minutes long. So we implemented this rotation, for the year. Again, it's still full credit classes. They just meet every other day. It also helps with things like, we'll stick with band just for the sake of talking about it. But yearbook and some of the science classes, they're all very good examples of this. There are reasons to have the same group together the entire year, right? If you had semester 1 band and semester 2 band, your numbers could fluctuate drastically. It's going to be a challenge. An earth science class, like what you're talking about, they can actually study every season. If they can get out, they can do labs outside, literally spanning the entire year. Yearbook used to be a huge challenge. Now it is one yearbook crew from the beginning of the year through the end of the year, and they produce the entire book. They do the spring. We never had a spring supplement until we made this move because it was a semester 1 class. And by the end of semester 1, we could get in what we could get in, and then there was a few kids who would try to kind of keep it going almost as a club, but it was a challenge. So there's so many complicating factors with the schedule.
Yeah. So, like we said, the block 2 has a lot more classes than again, first semester. If I look at the enrollments, block 2 has the highest number of enrolled students because there's more classes. But
There's no priv during block 2 either.
what's that?
So there's no senior privilege during block 2, that like the entire student population.
That was my question was, you've got 391 students in block 2 classes, but then in block 4, at the end of the day, there's 283, so 100 less students.
Well,
What are they doing?
that block 2 number is a little deceptive too, because they're not all in those block 2 classes, in both rotation classes. They're not in both of them every day.
Okay.
It's every other day that they're in a class. So that's not that total that you put together is not an accurate actual total. It would be higher than block 4 because some kids will have priv. It's not a huge number of students who have priv or their day has ended prior to that. But it's not as high as what it seems to be just as a general sum.
So the earth science that you referenced where that's a rotating schedule, is that the same thing in the same block as robotics?
It is one of those rotation blocks. It's not taught by the same teacher.
Correct, that's what I meant, but is the robotics listed twice in block 2, semester 1, one having 9 students, one having 7 students? Is that same year-long rotation?
Yeah, it's sections. When we did the rotations, we experimented with a lot of different things. One of the challenging things that we ran into was courses that were running as semester-specific classes and rotation classes. It became challenging for teachers, like health was one, PE was another, that we tried to do these things, and they'd be running one unit for the semester, and they would be well beyond that unit the year round, once they got into semester 2. So the teachers were having to reset and reorganize, and it was the same class, but a very new prep because they were in completely different places, and it was hard to pace that way too.
Yeah. So then where are the students when they're not when they're on their off days?
In a different class.
So the off day of the robotics would then have an on day for earth science?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When both Lauren Fontaine and Scott Lounsbury were teaching at both the high school and the middle school, there were 2 additional classes. So I actually just, for transparency's sake, 2 of the classes that were listed in previous programs of study that I asked him to remove when these numbers were put together were arts and culture and dance fitness. So Scott, on opposite days of chorus, was teaching arts and culture, and Lauren was doing dance fitness, alternating from band. So there were additional course offerings, opposite of those classes. So if you look at those sections, again, that's why the sum doesn't work out, right? So a kid exists here on one day, it's just a different class on the other day. Part of the challenge of doing that again is like finding enough classes that freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors all want to take or need to take opposite of their classes. But the numbers don't bear, for example, 2 sections of band. And if we had 2 sections of band, we don't know where we would teach chorus. You have to balance it out a little bit.
In block 1, I'm seeing two singletons, one being AP Art, and then Spanish 3 honors.
AP Art is actually being taught concurrently to another course. So that student is in the same classroom as other students. So if you look, there's another art class right underneath that.
Painting?
Yeah, I think it's painting, yeah. So he has one student, it looks like he's got one student in his classroom, but he doesn't. It is, my course or something. Yeah, so he has two different courses that he is running concurrently during block one. So it's not one student in his classroom, it's one student who is doing that class offering. Otherwise, there was no place in the schedule for us to offer that to the student. It's the same thing with the Spanish student. There was just no other place that could go in the schedule because we couldn't offer that as a full course.
So is that a singleton, or is that combined with something else?
That is combined. That is combined with, actually that one's not combined, that is an additional prep. So she took that on wanting to work with that student. She also has block 2, Spanish 1, and then Senora actually has an academic support study hall in her block 3, and then block 4. She's got Spanish 3. So in a way, she's got 4 different things that she's taking on in each of her classrooms. She has a student in her room at all times.
So then I'm looking at Algebra 2 in Block 1 at 7 students, and then Algebra 2 in Block 4 at 3 students.
You're going to have students signing up for different things at different times. But if you,
Scheduling challenges.
an important thing to look at as well is if you look at a small number in semester 1, oftentimes you're going to find a larger number in semester 2. We try to balance them out. But again, when kids are making decisions about taking Hewitt courses or things like that, you know, they have to fit them in somewhere.
Additional questions?
I don't know, I mean, this is, you know, why we've been, more than just me, asking for this type of information to see where we can combine, if we can combine, because there is a fair number of low numbers. You know, again, it's frustrating that it took this long to get the information.
When you say combine, can you clarify what you mean?
Well, where Mr. Finch said, you know, some of the classes, they either, if they have the opportunity to run concurrently and it would work, because running things concurrently doesn't always work. You know, and, you know, having some of these, you know, some of the numbers pretty low, I mean, even moving forward into second semester.
I just looked up, by the way, the second semester Algebra 2 numbers, and there's a class of 24 and a class of 19. So it's not that Algebra 2 numbers are down, it's that kids have made choices and the schedule bears that.
Is there more than the algebra being split up for the whole year?
What do you mean? Do you mean like, is English 9 both semesters, or is it Algebra 1 only?
Well, so you have, and this was, I spoke to it before, but you know, Algebra 1, you have 1A, 1A, 1B.
Yep.
So 1A is first half of the year, which is really a calendar year for a curriculum, and then 1B. Are there other classes that do the same thing, whether chemistry or biology or? other core content classes?
AP levels do that. And some of the classes have to basically differentiate their standards. Like band isn't just the same standards over and over and over again. There are band standards for students as they progress through.
I mean, I agree that not every low number class can, you can't take anything under 5 and say it's gonna do VLAX. I mean, that's irresponsible, to think that. Especially when you get into chemistries, you have experiments, you have, I mean, even with your science, you're trying to do labs. I mean, I completely get it. But, I mean, it seems to me that there'd be some of these content areas that would yield themselves or lend themselves very well for VLAX. But again, it's hard to be having that conversation now, getting this information to a lead.
Well, and I guess going back to our role isn't to, I'm just clarifying, to like fix the high school schedule, because
Right.
that's, I agree with you, we need the information. I think if we're wanting something different, so we allocate money, we can direct people to look at different things and bring it back so we can make decisions.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we can decide what to do with the classes.
No, but when we're looking at the overall, the overall budget, whether we're satisfied with it or unsatisfied with it, one of the things that we could and should be looking at is staffing. And I mean, Mr. Turfey, I mean, you said, came to me and said the only reason that we want to look at these numbers is to either add staff or reduce staff. And my stance is, or we can look at it and say that we're appropriately staffed. But
I'd also suggest that part of this,
that's what I feel one of our responsibilities is
Yeah.
when we're looking at the budget in the whole.
I'd also suggest that part of this conversation not just look at 1 year of enrollment, because you're going to have fluctuations.
Yep.
And some students will head in one direction or another direction. This is the first year in some time that we've offered a robotics course in the school. So if you don't know what having it back in the building is going to bear out long term.
Sean?
I guess I would just add, there's definitely a budget component of it, and I get that, but part of me is looking at, long-term, what does our high school offer for classes? And if there's an opportunity to, combine 2 classes and offer aviation, which sounds like a pretty cool class that we have 15 kids in, I want to be able to offer more elective options for our kids, realizing we're not going to have the budget to add a bunch of teachers. And so that's always kind of in the back of my head, where I would love to be able to, I'd love for the high school to look at the scheduling and go, this scheduling makes the most sense, it's all we can do, or could we change it from 4 blocks to 5 blocks and open up more offerings? Like, I'm just looking for are there any opportunities for us as a district to broaden our offerings for our students while keeping the budget and the number of teachers?
And that process tends to happen every year because we have teachers that express interest in teaching a new course. That new course is vetted, it eventually makes it in the program of studies that's approved by the board, and then it gets to the school counseling department when the students are signing up to see if they can fill that class. We've done that multiple times over
But
multiple
I'm
years.
guessing we have limited capacity to do that, that's the concern. Like, we still have to offer Algebra 1A,
Correct.
1B, 2A, like, there are all these courses we really have to offer. We want to offer the honors, we want to offer the AP. So, we're down to, 3 classes or something. And so I'm always looking to, increase that number if it's possible.
I think we get very creative with things like dual credit. Obviously the Hewitt, the Ag Center, we have students who, if the general practice with a student signing up for a VLAX class for credit with us, they have to go through the counseling office first and foremost. But if it's a class that we, A, don't offer, or B, the student can't get into his or her schedule, then we work it out with the student. And we're very, successful in getting kids into those programs. It comes down to the fact that we have to offer graduation requirements as well. So that, we can't shy away from any of that.
When's the last time we looked at, I'm just gonna throw it out here, the last time we looked at either doing AB for the whole year, AB days, which I find extremely confusing, but I'm not in school, so that's fine. Or like a 7-block schedule, and would that offer us more offerings for students? I know you weren't here when
Yeah.
the last time we looked at it, and I don't know when that would be.
I've taught in both. I've taught English in particularly AB rotations, and I also taught at Guilford, which is trimesters that meet every single day. There are going to be pros and cons with every single schedule that you try. If there wasn't pros and cons of every single schedule, everybody would use the same
Right.
schedule.
No, and I completely agree. I've worked under a 7-period day, a trimester day, a block day, and, blocks with skinnies, and I mean, you name it, it's out there. And it seems to be that the smaller of a district that you get, the harder it is to run a non-traditional, 7-period day.
Yeah. But that's the same for other schedules and depending on the size of the school. So when I started teaching at Guilford, the idea of trimesters was really this big promotion, right? But in reality, we couldn't offer every class every trimester because we didn't have enough teachers.
Right.
So it was the same types of things that you run into in this type of schedule where, and there were some courses, music courses being one of the biggest ones, that took a huge hit from making that change. Because you couldn't have a kid in band all 3 trimesters. They needed other classes to be, in their schedule. So it had a real impact on that.
I guess the only other thing I would add is, it's in the back of my head still, like, we have a lot of kids going to Hewitt, for example, which is great, fully support the program. There are things there that we are never gonna offer at Belmont High School. I totally get that. But if there are things that we can offer that, I wouldn't say compete, but keep our students in the high school, engineering courses or whatever, like, we should be looking at offering those. How we do that, I don't know. But
We do have engineering. It's a class. It's not
Yeah.
as expansive as what they have at the Hewitt, and they don't have all the materials and programming and facilities that we would have to be building and sinking a whole lot of money into to offer some of those programs. I think, Sean, at a previous meeting, you alluded to something about like an early childhood program or something. I think you did. Think about the amount of additional monies in terms of liability to have small children in our campus working with our students.
And this is a much bigger discussion than just tonight, but say Hewitt adds 10 new programs, and we have more students going to Hewitt in those 10 programs.
Mhm.
Like at some point, probably not high school. So I feel like that's always something we should be thinking about, making our course offerings as attractive as possible.
Yeah.
Do the different runs, so run 2, run 1, run 2, run 3 to Laconia, is that basically block 2, 3, 4 for
Pretty-
round numbers?
Pretty much, ish.
We'll say, speaking about the variety of offerings that we have at our high school, for such a small high school, that was one of the areas that the Charles Study Committee looked at very closely, comparing our program of studies with other high schools, and that was one of the eye-openers for the committee, that we offer quite a large number of course offerings for this high school. Yeah, in comparison to schools even larger than ours.
We've looked a lot at the lower numbers, but I'm also noticing we have a significant amount that are 20 plus.
Yep.
When kids are signing up for classes, is there a cap that you think of? Or
Yep.
do you discourage or encourage taking at a different time? How does that work?
Most courses are capped at 24. There's a few outliers, like Lauren Fontaine would love more than 24 kids in her band. Okay? But the majority of classes are in that range. There are times, I mean, if you're working with an individual student and there's flexibility, sure. But sometimes a student has things in their schedule, if they're looking during the add drop period, and you don't want to blow up their schedule completely, yes, you can make some adjustments and maybe be a little bit strategic about this class has 14, this class has 23, and it doesn't make a difference because the other class is also offering that other block. That gets really complicated. There is no aspect of individual student or in particular master scheduling that isn't complicated.
If a student, let's say, I'm looking at honors geometry, there's 20, which could be challenging if you were a student that needs more one-on-one. Is there can you try for a VLAX class or something if that number is maybe too high for you, or?
That particular class, we also have a semester 2 offering of it. So I think we would start there. So, I mean, we want our kids to take classes in our building.
Sure.
That's why we have that policy about if it fits in their schedule and we offer it, we want you taking it with our teachers. So we get creative with that. Sometimes a kid can't take it in the semester that they wanted it, but if they can take it the second semester or the next semester, then there's not much of a reason to make huge changes from that point.
Other questions?
It's a great information.
Anytime you want something like that, it can be provided. I would just ask again that everything is in a context. And multiple years, you can look at data and see how things fluctuate and goes all over the place.
Okay. Thank you. Budget development, draft warrant articles.
You also have been provided in your packet draft warrant articles from the board for consideration. It's actually an action item this evening. We're putting together the information for the public hearing. We also provided you with updated summary sheets for the proposed budget based on actions the board took with our last meeting, as well as the summary sheet for the default budget for your books. So in the draft warrant articles, we have an election of a moderator, election of 2 school board members, the operating budget based on the number that the board approved last Tuesday. And then with the facilities and grounds expendable trust fund, we're actually looking at increasing that to $200,000 out of fund balance because of the anticipated cost down the line for HVAC replacements, air handlers and such.
Did buildings and grounds discuss the 200,000?
No, we did not. So, my opinion would be, I would love for us to have the air handler CIP in place before we go and ask for more money, because it's good to have that visual to be able to say, hey, this is what's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
So are you comfortable with leaving it at the 150?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And then we felt that it would be important to bring back the special education expendable trust fund contribution. We haven't asked for those monies out of end of year fund balance for several years. However, being notified that we're going to be receiving less state aid for special education costs, which seems to be a given, we felt that we should at least put some monies into the trust fund because of the reduction of the state funding for those services. So that's it. That is at $50,000 end of year.
Just to be clear though, those funds, the expendable trust can only be used if we're not aware of somebody coming into the school year, right?
The unanticipated
Unanticipated.
expenses.
We haven't used any funds. Far back as I can. So I understand the reason, but we haven't used it. Why
Yeah,
hasn't it?
I didn't bring my budget book, but what's currently in the special ed trust?
I get the reason, we're never gonna be able to actually pull from it because it's so defined.
$354,658.
My concern is how would we know to use it if special education aid is reimbursable? So if we don't get notified that we're getting less money until after the school year's passed. I know I'm looking at Deb, but just, like, how would we know to use it?
Well, it's really not so much based on the reimbursement as the fact that if you don't have the money in the budget and the student moves in and it's a tight year, you might not have enough in the expendable trust to cover it.
So student moves in September 1, high needs.
Right.
We can't provide services. So we would then, put that student, out of district to the tune of $175,000 to $300,000. We may get reimbursed some of that, we may not.
Right.
So that's where that shock absorber would come in.
The biggest impact would be is if you had to hold a special district meeting because you don't have enough money in the budget, but because of the cut in funding, you still wouldn't get that money back the following year. So that's the funding issue.
Right, but I'm just saying in my head,
Yeah.
I was trying to connect, like, I totally get that, it's just we haven't used it in so many years. And because so if somebody moved in September 1st, and it's a $200,000 placement, we could use this trust fund, which has been the case for the last, however many years I've been on the board. The only difference is, not difference, but we don't know what we would get reimbursed from special education aid, but that's the following
Right.
year, so I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just trying to process the thought behind it.
I mean, the only time where we'd really get in trouble with the current number that's there, in my opinion, is if 2 moved in. If 2 moved in, it'd be a crapshoot on whether or not we could, we could cover it. In a single year.
Right.
We had 0.
Right, so odds are, that we wouldn't. So, I mean, based on historical norms, I would say no, but.
How much is in the trust again?
355.
$354,000.
And-
Know to remove this article, if you're comfortable with it, just a suggestion.
Well, I just wondered because they go in chronological, the order in which we want funded. Don't we have I know we do, just a technology CIP and the food service, so I wonder if we want that higher up on the list. I don't know, I'm just processing out loud here.
Yeah, I mean, if we decide to keep it in, and I guess I could go both ways, but I wouldn't want it Article 5. I would want it Article 7.
We can make that move.
But I'm not sure I know enough about Article 6 and 7 to really say that yet.
You want me to go there? So Article 6, the addition of the Technology Expendable Trust Fund, that's what we put down every year in accordance with the capital improvement plan. And then last year was the first year that we established the Food Service Equipment Expendable Trust at $20,000, putting another 20 into that. And that is for unanticipated equipment costs.
So, if I know nothing about kitchen equipment, why would I support that? Like, I feel like we have to have, not a CIP, but we have to have an idea of what we would tell people at the public hearings as to, some of the things we've spent money on that were really big that we didn't anticipate that this could be used for, or things that we never know what's gonna go. But I just think we have to be prepared with some information for that.
We explained it from last year, I know because I explained it.
Yeah,
How did you explain it, Jen?
I mean, it was about the kitchen, the boilers that.
Yeah, but
went
two
down
schools.
Yeah, both schools mid-year, and we have to provide.
and those
lunch.
cost this much.
Yes,
Right, and what did we spend on that? I forget. What did that cost us?
One was 18,000 and the other was 24.
Okay. And this would be, and you said that this is new for this year.
No, this would be the
No,
second year
second,
on,
yeah.
so it would be $40,000.
we're happy to explain this one again this year.
Do we have a replacement schedule for
So-
any of that?
I have an inventory, so I'm looking at the inventory, we're trying to get the conditions on them. So I know what year they were put in and getting that together to try to figure out. I mean, it's always hard to say which one's gonna go first, but at least have an idea of what the cycle will be.
So this is a pretty significant surprise for us at close to $40,000 for replacement. We already have 20 in there. I mean, I would say, we could easily drop that to 10. Have, if it's approved, now we have 30 in a reserve when we had a very large unexpected at 40. We're pretty close.
Yeah. That's raised a question to me. Say something goes May 1st, and we already know, we have a ballpark on what the unexpended funds are. Are we using unexpended funds, or are we using the expendable trust?
Board's decision.
The budget would dictate we would use funds at that point.
So part of me is like, I agree with you, we don't need to build it up as quickly, because we already have money in the budget, in theory. I'm confident that we will have money at the end of the fiscal year if we need it.
Okay. So there are 3 articles now that Michael's gone through, now we have to decide. I don't know where you want to start.
So we're changing Article 7 to
Well, the question becomes, do we want to do additions to the special ed expendable trust at all? And if so, do we move it to number 7?
at the very least, I'd say move it to 7. Then we can discuss whether we.
I'd agree to move it to 7 and then we can discuss.
I agree.
Okay, so now, it sounded like I was yelling. The heat keeps turning on and off. It's kind of like when we get the milk cooler.
Yeah.
That milk cooler, okay. Then the next one, so technology expendable trust.
That becomes Article 5.
That becomes Article 5, and do we want to keep that and in the amount of $20,000? We have a CIP for that, correct? So we are building up money to purchase, what's our next thing on the CIP? Do you remember? I'm just curious. Somebody explained it last year, I'm sure. Randy? Wow, Jill.
Well, again, but this would be for unanticipated expenses.
No,
Well, this is based
no.
on our capital improvement.
We have a
plan.
capital improvement plan.
Okay, so the capital improvement plan is going to uses the expendable trust versus
Yes.
what is the current Article 7, which does not.
Special ed, you mean?
No.
Well,
we started
current,
with
for the kitchen equipment.
We don't have a CIP for kitchen equipment.
No, that's what we just asked about, so
Right,
Debbie's doing
Yeah.
the inventory.
I was just making sure that
Yes, Mark, yeah.
So it goes anywhere from network switch upgrades over the next 5 years, security for our AI phones. We also are looking at Chromebook cycle 5 years out.
But the CIP makes an assumption of a 20,000, I don't have it in front of me, but 20,000
Each year.
increase.
Yeah, and eventually we're building up because in 28, 29, the interactives that we put in are gonna start to need to be replaced.
Just so I know what's an interactive.
That's
That
display.
big board.
Interactive displays when we replaced, put new ones into the
Oh, yeah.
school district.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to keep the technology? Yep. Okay, now, food services, Article 6. I
Yes,
see, yes?
We're talking about moving food, so we're talking about moving the special education down to 7, so that would bring the food service up to Article 6.
Oh,
Are you okay with that?
before we discuss on whether or not to strike it?
I would like to keep it.
Oh,
yeah. You talked about 10,000 for that one, right?
That's,
as an.
That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to do.
Okay.
Move it to 6.
so you'd like, move it to 6, which we, yeah, and then put 10,000 in it
Instead of 20.
instead of the 20?
Yeah, yeah, I'm good with
I'm
that.
good with that, especially if we're moving towards having a replacement schedule.
Okay. 10,000.
Okay.
And then special ed, expendable trust.
I gotta piggyback off of what Sean said, I don't think we need to, based on historical norms, we don't need to keep building that up, and if I need to eat or shoe later next year, I guess I eat or shoe.
If we had one student move in the middle of the year, high cost, would our expendable trust cover it?
It'd be tight,
Depends on the cost.
it'd be tight though. I think
But I'm
the
anticipating a
highest,
high cost, I don't know.
highest I've seen is over $300,000 from out of district placement.
Is that for a full year, or is that for like a partial year? Like if someone moved in, January?
Full year,
The high end would be 300.
over, a little over. But that was years ago.
Administration believes we need this.
We're just suggesting that we're
That's a
suggesting
little
that,
soft, come on.
we're suggesting that you add to it because the concern comes with the increase in costs for either out-of-district placements or services that need to be provided to students and the reduction in state funding.
Yeah.
So this is just we're basically opening up the trust fund to start feeding it again.
I'm fine with
I'm fine.
that. Thoughts? We can do it, we can reduce it, we can,
When's the last time we added to this?
2 years ago.
oh, we did?
What?
No.
To special
It's
ed?
longer than
boy.
that.
No,
Really? 2 years?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Oh, time flies faster than
Yeah,
that.
I pulled up the annual reports and it was right after the expendable trust 2 years ago.
Was it 50,000?
I thought,
Yes,
thought it had been a while.
it had been a while. And then we started getting concerned because special ed placements were going up.
Yeah.
So that's why we added $50,000.
Could
We had removed the ghost placement in the budget.
Could we also use it if we had to with someone who moved in where we couldn't cover, we could for, if somebody needed a specialty nurse and all kind, like, that we didn't budget for and we didn't have money in funds, we could use, because there could be a student with high needs who moves into the district that doesn't need an out-of-district placement.
Yes, if we didn't cover that in the operating
Right.
budget, then we would go to the trust fund.
unanticipated special education costs.
Right. So what would y'all like to do? Yes or no? Money?
I say strike it.
Alice?
I understand the concern. Would we be able to put one time?
We can do whatever
You want.
I agree, like,
I think
I'm
maybe
torn,
just-
so I'm like, go right down the middle.
Yeah,
Say,
Right.
I do feel like, I think your concerns are valid, and especially what's happening in the
Right.
process. Students, in this case, one student, began to really throw things off.
And I
I feel more
understand,
comfortable.
yeah,
with
that there's concerns because of the rise in special education needs, but maybe we can just try and lower it a little.
25. Jeff?
I'm fine if it went away. You guys wanna do 25, I don't care. I don't think I don't know. I'm torn, because I mean, we haven't had any in how many years? When's the last time we actually took money out?
We've never taken money out of it,
So,
which is why we stopped putting money in for
I
a
know.
while.
I've heard all the arguments. Both sides. I don't know. Let's say get rid of it, I guess. For this year, bring it back next year, talk about it again.
Tomorrow I'm deciding to vote.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'd say I'll do 25.
So change that to 25.
Yes.
So I'm gonna recap for everyone, because this is an action item.
Oh, yes.
Article 4 is addition to school facilities grounds expendable trust fund, the amount of $150,000 out of end of year fund balance, unassigned fund balance, I'm sorry. Article 5 would be addition to the technology expendable trust fund, an amount of $20,000 out of this year's unassigned fund balance. Article 6 would be addition to food service equipment expendable trust fund at the amount of $10,000 out of this year's unassigned fund balance. And then Article 7 would be addition to special education expendable trust fund in the amount of $25,000 out of this year's unassigned fund balance.
We did not put anything in for furniture.
I think we're good.
It's up for action, right?
Make a motion to accept the noted changes to the warrant report.
Second?
Additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Motion carries.
While we're on budget development,
Yes.
your next meeting is the day before the public hearing. So people need to know what their assignments are going to be and who's discussing which warrant article.
So in preparation for that, Debbie has what
Who did what?
covered in the past.
So last year, Sean did the 1100s to the 1290s. Randy did the 1300s to the 1890s. Jill did 2110 through 2190. Alice did 2210 through 2225. Jeff did 2310 to 2490. And Mark did 2510 through 4600. And then Michelle did the subtotal general fund and the transfers. Are those still fine? Okay. Last year, for the warrant articles, Michelle did the operating budget. Jeff did the facilities and grounds expendable trust. Randy did the technology expendable trust. Jill did the food service expendable trust. And we did not have the special ed expendable trust on last year, so somebody will need to do that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for talking points.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm working on the public hearing book. I'll be getting that out to you as a draft, and I will also send these assignments so you can review. But in the meantime, you do have your summary budgets.
So when the draft is okay and goes to publication, it gets printed, are you going to mail that or should we pick it up? Because we're not, if we want to look at it before, write on it before, the night before, we're gonna need it.
Right, right. So I let me know if you want me to mail it. I can mail it, you know, when I send out
I'm happy to pick it up, just
information.
email us when it's ready.
Yeah. So just let me know when I email, you know, I'll email you a copy anyway, and then if you want me to mail you a copy, just email back and say, please mail me a copy.
Actually, it's all over the place at that point, the schools, and you can get it anywhere.
Typically, yeah.
But you'll get a copy before it gets printed to go into the schools for your review, so,
Right.
for editing purposes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna table the CES and BES literacy program pilot, because Silas is sick. He's been out since.
We'll table that until January.
On the horizon. Anything? Okay. Okay, enrollment report.
So as of December 1st, our enrollment number for the district is 1,133 students total across the district.
Down 9.
9 fewer students. The majority of those are move-outs.
Okay. Volunteer list.
Make the motion to accept the volunteers for the number assumptions.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Debbie,
So I presented the school care health insurance rates, which you were going to accept them. We need to approve them and return the form by February 1st.
And if we don't accept them, we don't have insurance.
We would have to go out to bid and try to find another company. The
Motion to
rates
accept
averaged 22% increase this year.
School care, health insurance rates.
Second.
discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. And Debbie, you also,
This is just for information. This is the budget report, that financial report I've provided in the past. It's the current status of the budget.
Anything of concern on your end?
anything of note, anything?
I mean, we have some special ed, if you look on page 1, you'll see that the special ed salaries, obviously we have those openings, so there's quite a bit left over there. But if you look at the purchase services, which is a 300 line, there was nothing budgeted, and we are currently looking at being overexpended $276,190. That's because we're having to contract for special ed assistants to meet requirements for the IEPs.
So that's something that in the future we should look at, a position, or is it a variety of services?
No, we have the positions, we just can't get
Can't fill it.
candidates. Yeah, so we've had to contract out for the services.
These are all one-on-one behavioral positions, one-on-one.
And we currently have 7 that we're contracting, so we cannot fill the positions.
Unfortunately, this is not uncommon.
Right now, we are not the only district having to do this.
So, my confusion with the financial report is, well, we're in December, so I'm like halfway through the fiscal year. I don't know if the available is a lot or a little. Do we usually spend a bunch in the second half of the year? Like, I don't know how to read this, if that makes sense.
So, well, the biggest thing is when you look at the expenditures through November 30th, you don't have a lot of your heating bills at that point,
Yeah.
because we're just getting them in. We haven't received the voc ed bills. We know that we're going to have money left in voc ed transportation because we got that grant.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is the fact that there's a lot that's not encumbered because I can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful to know, but it's not as helpful as, like, say, the end of the year when we realize,
When I
well, we
do
over
projections.
budgeted this
Yep.
area, or under budgeted this area.
Yeah, it's way too early to do projections out, you know, we don't know what the heating's gonna be, we don't know what the salting and sanding's going to be in the plowing, so. It is early, it's just a snapshot in a brief period of time.
Any other questions? Anything else, Debbie?
That's it for me.
Michael?
Thank you. I just wanted to let the board know, other than the board members that were there, is that we had our first strategic planning committee meeting this past Saturday. The committee is made up of 25 people with a great variety of we have students, staff, parents, and school board members, and some of those school board members as well as staff are also wearing a parent hat around that committee. And we had our facilitator, Dr. Nick Cohn from Isobar Public Sector, who we have contracted with to facilitate that work. He was excellent. We met from 9 to 3 on Saturday, and the process involved us reviewing and doing an exercise with our past strategic direction, our most recent strategic direction, as well as then looking at the recent stakeholder survey results at a quick glance, basically, and coming up with some themes, which we will then dive into at our next meeting in February to really develop what the school district's priorities will be over the next 5 years, and some key indicators to measure those priorities as we move forward. So our next meeting is scheduled February 15th with the group. Really excited, great group of people, excellent discussions, and a great facilitator. So it's moving along quite nicely. I don't know if any of the board members want to.
The only thing I can say is I don't know if I guarantee, but I'm pretty sure the next one won't be 46 pages.
Yeah, so we're really targeting for.
I was talking.
Yeah, really targeting a 2-page document.
It's the best part.
Yeah, it's a 2-page document, user-friendly, that gives the information that would be easily accessible to anyone reading it, as well as noting the priorities as well as the key indicators to meet those priorities. So thank you, Sean, for bringing that up.
And I got the sense that the strategic mission statement will reflect to necessarily make any changes or
No.
like that. So we're sticking with that.
Yeah, we're looking. intentionally keeping our current mission statement, engaging all learners who see in their ever-changing world. So it was a great day. Looking forward to the next meeting. That's all I have.
Well, you have the school year.
On that item, yes.
Oh, I'm like, you're not done.
No, I'm not. Next on the agenda is the proposed 25-26 school year calendar. You see, we'll have a draft there. The proposed draft includes 3 teacher workshop days at the start of the school year. This calendar directly aligns with Laconia School District calendar as a CTE center, a regional CTE center. The only difference being is that we have an additional teacher workshop day at the start of the school year, and we actually get out earlier at Laconia according to this draft calendar. So there are no major changes to this other than we have the availability of an additional teacher workshop day at the beginning of the school year because we do not have a primary election day in September.
So Laconia has workshop days, no students on November 4th, January 30th, and March 10th as well.
Yeah, we're all in there. So all of our Hewitt students will be participating without any calendar conflicts. So I'd see a motion to approve
It's up for
the
action.
calendar as presented.
Make motion to accept the calendar as presented.
Second.
Quick question, I don't know if you said it or not, but the last day of the school is anticipated, it's the 16th.
Yes.
Do we typically have anything for the teachers after that last day?
No.
Just, that's it?
That's an early release day.
So no
For students, no changes there either.
Is Juneteenth on the 17th? 19th.
And I noticed you no longer have on here potential graduation day.
Correct.
I'll just say, as a parent, if we're able to set graduation sooner, it's not fair for, I get why you might not put it on the calendar, but having experienced it, other schools do it a lot sooner, and I just don't get why. You said there's a new law that passed.
Yeah, I'm confident in being able to call that from January.
Okay. I just think people have,
With our options for remote learning days, I basically have 3 traditional snow days right now that can get us till Friday. We play with it from there, so I keep that in mind, but there isn't any reason why we can't get the graduation date earlier in the year than we have in the past.
thank you. Okay, is there a motion in a second? I think there was.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Internal policy, these are all up for second readings and action. Okay, we can start with risk management. You wanna? You know.
I was gonna say, am I the one making the motion? Is that what
Oh,
you're?
I don't know.
Say, I mean, as second reading, unless anybody has a concern, we can
Yeah.
just do all 3 at once, or 4, 3.
There's 4. There's no question, I can do my best to.
I'll make a motion to accept EI, risk management, FF, naming of facilities and programs, GB, CD, background investigation, criminal records check and fingerprinting, and GBEA, staff ethics.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, I didn't say this in the beginning, but Under nominations, in your packet was a nomination for a school psychologist. It's in your packet, so we could approve that tonight as well. So there are 3 nominations, more than 3, but BHS, chemistry, physics, physical science teacher. There's a school psychologist in your packet, and then there's Appendix B nominations. We can do these in public as long as people do not have.
Make a motion to accept the BHS, chemistry, physics, physical science teacher, and what was that?
School psychologist.
School psychologist.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Now Appendix B nominations.
Make a motion to accept the nomination.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next up, public communication and correspondence. Seeing none,